Good morning. Whoa, we got really hair going on. Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. So, I was watching The Undercover Billionaire, which I think is a great show. Of course, last night I watched Dancing with the Stars with Carol Baskin. I mean, come on, you got to watch that. And I can't believe that not only do they have that show, but good for her for agreeing to doing it. To become a celebrity for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Take the money while you can. Good for you, Carol Baskin, because you know that Twitter's just going to fire up, that you just say, go ahead and take the money. So an undercover billionaire, he starts talking about the power of pivot. And, you know, one of the things to remember in our ultimate success formula, let's review: know your outcome, take massive action, have sensory acuity, be acutely sensitive as to whether or not your actions are getting you closer to your goal or taking you further away, and then change your approach. I think it's easy to forget that a lot of times, and when we set a plan and we start doing something, when it doesn't work out, we consider it failure. And, you know, recently I had this happen in my life where I'd been working on something for a long time and I thought it was ready to work out and it didn't happen, and it feels like a failure, but it's not. And one of the things to remember is, especially in business, you know, you need to do this power of the pivot. So I see that on Undercover Billionaire, where he was working in one direction and it didn't happen, so he had to go work in a different direction. It's like, look, we still need to get to our outcome. This vehicle isn't going to get us there. And he actually used that term. So we got to go do something else. And then in between, when I was eating my salad for lunch, I flipped on YouTube and I flipped on a Grant Cardone interview. And they were talking about this very topic. And he said the following: number one, when you pivot, it isn't failure, it's progress. Because people who fail continue to do the same thing again and again and again. When you go and try something different, you're actually making progress. It's not failure. And remember, in business, no matter what you do, the vehicle you arrive in at the end is not going to be the vehicle that you start in. I immediately pulled up my notes and wrote that down. The vehicle that you arrive in is not going to be the vehicle that you start in. Understand that as we go through this, especially when it comes to business, especially when it comes to money, these things are going to change. So when they change, if you've been working on something for a long time and you thought that that was going to be the vehicle and it doesn't work out, when you shift and go work to something else, don't look at that as a failure. Look at that as you're being successful because you're now moving to the next thing. And don't throw this other thing away. Stop working on it if it's not working and put it over here. But that may come back sometime later. Timothy Burton's most successful movie was a movie that he tried to do as his first movie with Disney. In fact, it was one of the movies that got him fired by Disney, his dream place to go work. But it was a movie that he ultimately ended up making, Jack Skellington, and it was hugely successful. But he tried making that movie 20 years earlier, and it didn't work out. So he moved on to other stuff. He went and did Beetlejuice. He went and did all these other movies. Ultimately, that movie did come back. So he shelved it because it wasn't working, pivoted, became significantly successful, and then ultimately went back to Disney, who fired him earlier, and brought Jack Skellington off the shelf, and it became one of his most successful films. And certainly the most successful in terms of merchandise, and it developed a cartoon and developed, you know, that really put him over the top. The vehicle you arrive in is not going to be the vehicle that you start out in. Hit me like a ton of bricks yesterday. So no matter what your goal is, stay focused on that. And when you hit a roadblock, go around it, go under it, do whatever you need to do, but don't look at that as failure. That's progress. If you worked like crazy on something and you didn't get the result that you thought you were going to get, you learned, you grew, you stretched yourself. You now have the ability to control and manage a larger space. And once you pivot, that's progress. Pivot equals progress. And I know you got to balance this with, well, when do I stop doing the thing that isn't working? Well, that one you got to go with your gut. If you truly believe in something, I think that it doesn't ever completely go away. But every super successful business guy is going to tell you that there's certain things that they believed in that just never worked out. But then there's also stuff that they went like crazy and finally did make it work. That you got to use your gut. And, be working on more than one thing at one time. Every stand-up comedian has got a series of jokes that they think have been fantastic that they've just never got the crowd to do something with. But who knows? Life could change and then all of a sudden it could be valuable. You got to use your gut and you got to head towards your outcome. But when you do pivot, don't look at that as failure. Look at that as success. And keep the other thing on the shelf because you never know when you're going to pull it back off and it's going to work again. Sometimes things 15, 20 years later all of a sudden do make sense and you were just early and ahead of the curve. The vehicle you're going to arrive in isn't the vehicle you're going to start out in. Hit me like crazy yesterday. Good morning, Tracy. Good morning, Jim. Good to see you guys. Have a great day, everybody. We're all in this together. Let's take care of each other.